بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I thank Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to send countless blessings and salutations upon our Prophet and Messenger Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to Scattered Thoughts with your brother in Islam, Imam Muhammad. I welcome the entire 3453 family. I pray for you. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you the best in this world and the hereafter. I want to talk about several things today, but I guess we can title this post-Fajr reflections as righteous anger. I was thinking about my thoughts and what's going on with me lately. So I like to call it righteous anger. Righteous anger. And I think we all should have, depending what it is, some righteous anger. So must ask, well, what is righteous anger? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, La taghdab. A person came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked the Prophet for advice. Give me advice, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, La taghdab. Don't become angry. And the man repeated this request, and the Prophet told him after that again, La taghdab, don't become angry. And the scholars, when they explained this hadith, they said that what the Prophet ﷺ was intended was to inform the person to control your anger, because anger is a natural disposition that comes over a person when they have reasons to become angry. So loving for the sake of Allah and hating for the sake of Allah are reasons to become delighted, to become pleased, and there are reasons to become angry and to hate something and to wage sometimes war against that thing, right? I'm going to give you a scenario, and I want all of you to engage me in this scenario. It can be literal and it can be figurative. It can be by word or it can be by meaning. So you can take it any way you want. My great granddaddy and mommy was a slave. My granddad and grandmom was a slave. My mom and dad was a slave. I'm a slave. My son and daughter is a slave. My granddaughter and grandson is a slave. I just put that for you. What just happened to your state if you listen to what I said? And you said that about yourself. How did you just feel? I'll repeat. My great grandmother and grandfather was a slave. My grandmother and grandfather was a slave. My mother and father was a slave. I and my wife are slaves. My son and daughter is a slave. My grandson and granddaughter is a slave. My great grandson and great granddaughter is a slave. How you feel? Imam Malik feel inferior, made me feel upset, hopeless, down, bad. More? That's it? Everyone else is still sleeping? Tell you. Let's move this. I come from a neighborhood where we used to own our own businesses. I want you to put yourself in this. You're speaking. I'm speaking, but I want you to put yourself in this same concept. I came from an area, a neighborhood, a people where we owned our own businesses. Then at some point, we lost our businesses and other people came to our area and our neighborhood. They bought out all the businesses to my mom and dad, worked for them, spent their money for them, and left with no retirement plan, no business. I worked for them, I spend my money with them, and I have no retirement plan and no business. My children works for them and have no plan of retirement and no business or anything. My grandchildren will work for their children and will have nothing to show for it if I can keep going. My great grandchildren will work for their children. Their great grandchildren will have nothing to show for it. The same feeling. How do you feel? Tell you. Tayyip, there was a time, third scenario. I remember when the religious leader in my community looked like me. Then my grandfather and grandmother lost their religious place of worship to others besides ourselves. They came in, they took over our religious institutions. My mom, my grandmom and granddad was under their leadership. My mom and dad was under their leadership. I and my sister are under their leadership. My children, my nieces and nephews are under the leadership of their children. My grandchildren will be under the leadership of their grandchildren. My great-grandchildren will be under the leadership of their children. They will build businesses, they will build institutions, and we will serve them in building their institutions, but we'll never have our own institution. How does that make you feel? That's your religion. That's what it looks like. So I gave you physical, I gave you material, and I gave you spiritual analogies. I gave you physical slavery. I gave you material business, employment. And I gave you spiritual religious. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest. How many of you have actually seen this in reality? I gave you scenarios. How many of you seen this or something similar to it in reality after thinking about what I just said? How many of you seen this in reality? Please answer me, engage me. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking. I'm not good at it, but I'm gonna give it a try. This is a serious discussion. All right, let me look at these comments. I had to do something real quick. I'm sorry. Okay, so many of us understand this. This is the average, unfortunate reality of too many, far too many African American, Black people in general, and Muslims. Black people in general and specifically African American or Black Muslims. This is a cycle, and what is extremely sad about it is we're watching it and we're not even noticing it's happening to us. We're watching it. We see it. They study it. They report it, and we miss it. It's happening. We're looking at it. Others are looking at it. Others are studying it and reporting it, and we're missing it. I've been having some discussions. Last night, I had a long discussion with some young brothers. Young. And I was talking to them. And after talking to them, I was in a state of severe righteous anger. Because I was listening to their desire to be freed from religious and spiritual slavery, but their lack of courage and knowledge of how to do it. They wanted to get out of it. They want to get out of it. But there are two factors. Number one, they don't have enough courage. I don't even think that's number one. I think number one, they don't know how to get out of it. And then number two, even when they learn, they got to muscle up the courage to actually do it. An elder told me a story, and I don't know that elder realized how much that story reflected the need we have as Muslims, as African American Muslims, the need we have to do that story that he told me in Islam. I'm going to share the story with you. The elder, whom I respect and I love, I do. I love him so much. He don't know how much I love him. I have a deep-seated love for elders, because one of the things that was stripped from our community, and it's happening in the world, but it's very bad in the African-American, Muslim and non-Muslim community, is a lack of respect and reverence for our elders. That was taught to us too, which is they have still a level of respect for their elders, because it's deteriorating in the world. But it was made even worse in our community the more we got so-called Islamic knowledge. The more we learned, the more disrespectful we became to our elders. In fact, we reached the point that our elders don't have no portion of Islam to us. And they don't know what they're doing. And even if they have mistakes, we don't even have a good opinion of them. They're idiots. We don't say that. That's the state. The state says that. So for me, if you don't have respect for your elders and reverence for your elders, this is an easy way to destroy your future generations, because you don't respect your elders. The sunnah of Allah in His creation is going to make your youth not respect you. it's going to come back around. That's the nature of how the world works. So you don't respect your elders. When you become an elder, your younger generation will not respect you, will not have reverence for you. So it's a way of destroying us. And people know this already. And I believe there's a serious conspiracy against the Black people of the earth, religiously, physically, economically, in all aspects. There's a out and out war waged on people of color. I believe that. I've watched it too much. It's wrong. Islamically, it's haram, but it's real. So the elder told me that he used to have a job. This was so profound. And he said he went to his boss and put in a request for a day off. Notice. And the boss said to him, I have to think about that. And basically asked him why you need the day off, why you can't, and said, you can do that another time. I'm not giving you the day off. And he said that my response was that, which was righteous anger. He said, from that day, I said, I will never, ever ask another man for the day off. It will be different. I'm taking this day off, and you need to find someone to replace me. I'm not asking you anything. Which I believe that led to that elder probably starting his own businesses. That experience was probably an inspiration. I didn't ask him, but I gathered that it probably was an inspiration to go start your own business. It was righteous anger, right? That led him probably to start his own business. And he became a businessman, an entrepreneur in different aspects. And I know many African-American Muslims, Black Muslims, even those who studied, for years, sometimes over a decade, sometimes 2 decades, who are still asking permission to serve their own people. They asking others for permission to serve and help and save their own people. I want to repeat that. We have African-American Muslims, Black Muslims, who are asking others, Arab, Pakistani, whatever they may be, other than themselves, for permission to serve and save and empower their own people. And if they're told no, they don't do it. Did you hear what I just said? That's a condition. That needs to change immediately. Immediately, that needs to change. That needs to change immediately, like right now. We all need to do what the elder said. I'm no longer asking you anything. And it should be insulting for us that someone expects us to ask them anything about changing and improving our condition as a people. And I'm telling you, it's bad. It's really bad. Some of the things that I'm working on, it is painful working on them. It hurts because of the state of mind of our people. The worst slave is the slave who doesn't realize he or she is a slave. Put that up, please. The worst slave is the slave who doesn't realize that he or she is a slave. Some of y'all type faster than me, that's why I'm asking you. The worst slave is the slave who doesn't realize that he or she is a slave. Please copy that. No, we need to really, really, and I want that to be, if you would indulge me, to be your post on your Facebook pages for today. Put, if everyone can put it, maybe you could take a second and do it while you're listening. I don't know, so you don't forget. But if you could do me a favor and put that on your page, your feed or whatever you do, you put your posts, put that, just that quote. The worst slave is the slave who does not realize that he or she is a slave. We need to wake up. Seriously. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me. I think y'all know I did a lot of prison time. Maybe some of you don't. Some of you know I did a long time in prison. State, federal. And I did some hard time because I was a rebel. So rebels get in trouble all the time, right? I was like, I was a rebel. I always bucking all the time, especially when I was young. Just buck. That's all I knew. Buck. Buck the system. I've been bucking since I was like 10 years old. I've been bucking, man. So I was in a state prison, and one of the prisons, most of the prisons, and this is real slavery, modern day slavery, they put the prisons in rural white areas where white people in their community would be empowered by the imprisonment of black people, because prisons are filled up with black people. So this is a societal slavery, new Jim Crow, or new form of slavery. And it's industry in these prisons. They work these people, and it empowers a whole white community. So depending how long my great grandfather was a warden and a CO, my grandfather was a warden and CO. My mom was the secretary in the prison. My dad is worked in the prison. He became a warden, a captain, and my mother became a administrator. And now I'm a working. I'm a CO, and my son's going to be, because you Negroes will keep coming to jail, and I'm going to keep making money off you, and we're going to build a community, and we're going to have this industry while they go get you slaves out of the inner cities and bring y'all to the suburbs to serve us. This is reality, right? So we were doing something. I don't remember the exact issue. So this CEO, he comes up, correctional officer. He comes up to me and he told me to do something. I don't even remember what it was. But the way he said it was as if I was his slave. I never forget this. And I said to him, now I'm looking at him. Now I'm not Imam Amin. Well, I'm Imam Amin in the prison, but I'm in the prison. So I'm really still in the prison. So I still got to be a prisoner, right? But I'm the imam in the prison too, because we have our little religious groups. And at that time, there wasn't chaplains. The inmate was the imam, right? So he says to me, he told me to do something first. And whatever he told me to do, I didn't see it the right thing to do. I don't remember what it was at the time. Now, remember, I'm young. Probably I should have done it. I don't know. But anyway, whatever he said, I ain't agree. And he said to me, I'm giving you, he told me to do it once. He told me to do it twice, maybe 4 times. I don't know. Because I was young. I was in my 20s. So I wasn't really trying to pay him no attention anyway. I was hoping he give me the opportunity to whoop him, right? That's what I wanted to do. But so I wasn't listening. And he said, after me not listening to him, he said, this is your last chance. I'm giving you a direct order. Now, I'm looking at this guy, young white guy, hillbilly. I'm like, you can't whoop me. So that's out of the question, right? And for you to give me a direct order, to me, that means you can whoop me. And you can't whoop me. And this is my mindset. So I told him, I said, you can't give me a direct order. What you can do is press that red button on your radio and call for backup. That's what you can do. He looked at me. I'm giving you a direct order. I said, You don't want the language I said to him, so we can skip that part. I said, you got to have a certain thing to give orders, and you don't have them. So he hit the deuces on me, right? And all the guards come running, goon squad, because when they hit the deuces, that means an officer's getting assaulted or something's happening, he can't handle it. So they come down to my unit and they looking. I didn't hit them. And so when they get there, they thinking it's going to be wreck. Wreck mean there's going to be a fight. I didn't hit him. But I scared the crap out of him. Because in his mind, he ain't have no authority, zero. He had to actually fight. And when he realized that he wasn't prepared to fight, he called for backup. And when they got there, when he hit that red button, everybody leave their posts. They're running to that unit. So the captain or lieutenant, one of them, he gets there and he's like, because it ain't no fight. And he says, well, I'm the imam. So I don't know if you know prison. That means something. In prison, the imam for the Muslims he's a leader and he got people under him. He snap his fingers, is going to be a problem. So they're not going to just attack me because it's going to be a fight and somebody going to get hurt. So it was even a lieutenant or a captain come to me, listen, let me talk to you, right? Because when they get there, they see it's no fight and they see it's me. So they like, all right, let's negotiate this thing before it get ugly. Now, the point is this guy, this CO, he's so confident in his oppression that he don't realize he getting ready to get himself hurt with his disrespect, his false authority that he thought he had because he got a job. And I explained to that lieutenant or that captain, I said, listen, he's in here trying to be oppressive and he got the wrong one. That's not going to happen. And in front of me, he reprimanded that CO. He still locked my butt up. I still went to the whole solitary confinement. But the point I'm making out of that story was that people only have the control over you that you give them. Once you take that back, that's it. But you got to be prepared to pay the consequence of that, whatever it may be. So I knew when I told him that, I needed to be prepared for a serious whooping. I knew what that red button means. But I also had to think, I had to weigh, is my esteem and dignity and my right as a human being more important to me than being whooped or beat up? Which one is more important? And for me, my pride as a human being and my dignity was more important to me than the consequences of me rebelling against this oppressive command that I saw. It's an analogy in this story why I'm telling you that. A lot of the stuff that we are in is because of our minds. The people who are ruling over us, if we ever just flip the table, you'll see a whole different story. If you ever just flip the table, you're going to see a whole different story. And I think we need to flip the table. We need to flip the table. For the salvation of future generations of our people, we need to flip the table. Stop being oppressed. Religiously, you're being oppressed. We as a people are being religiously oppressed. I'm telling you. And sometimes knowledge is dangerous if not used wisely, right? Because when you know stuff, when you realize some things, you're going to get angry. Now, what you do with that anger is another story, right? But when you learn, when you discover things, you're going to get angry. Rightfully so, you should. Now, what you do with it is another story. Some people get angry and just burn the city down. That's not smart. You can get angry and just take over the businesses and take your community back. You don't got to burn it down, right? So I was talking to somebody, one of the young brothers, and he told me something, right? And I'm going to tell you a story. These stories are important, right? Because they give you a lesson. It helps you see things. That's why we read stories in the Quran and the Hadith, because those stories, they help to bring realities to you, right? You read a story, you relate a story, and then there is something to extract from that story for a lesson that you're living right now. That's why we have stories in the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So the stories of the prophets, stories of nations going forth, those stories are not just there to entertain you. They're there to teach you something. So this is a true story. I was talking to one of our young brothers, and I asked him, what is he studying? Or what has he studied? So he started to tell me. Then he mentioned a specific book that he was learning. And I started laughing. I was cracking up. I was hilarious. He didn't know why I was laughing. Then I told him why I was laughing. And it relates to the story about the grandfather, great-grandfather, the father, the son. Remember I told you that analogy earlier? It relates to that. So this is a real story, right? I was studying with the authors and the families of the author of this particular book, that from the family of the book. It's like in their curriculum. I was studying with some scholars. So one scholar, I won't say scholar, just sheikh, right? And I give him sheikh, Arab sheikh. When he found out that I was studying with these people, because I was studying with them at first, He said to me, because he knows my nature, so he didn't say it directly. He was like, be careful of them. And now when I look back at that, basically he was saying, you're my slave. Don't go slave for someone else. You know I'm black. You know I come from the inner city. And sometimes we need analogies to see. Basically, he was saying, like he was my pimp, you my hoe. Don't go hoe for somebody else. Excuse the harsh language, but I want you to get how it really is. It is that bad. Like a pimp saying to a prostitute, you're my hoe, I better not catch you with another pimp. That's harsh, right? That's extremely harsh. That's the equivalent what he was saying to me. He didn't say that. He said, you be careful from them. In other words, you my boy. Now I was younger, I didn't see it that way. Now that I'm older, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Straight up. That's how I see it. And that's what they're doing to our people. So I listen. I mean, I listened to him and I continue doing what I'm doing. That's just me. I mean, I'm trying to hear that. Right? That same sheikh, fast forward almost 2 decades, the young brother told me that the son of that sheikh is now teaching, after learning with his father, to the same black people the books that sheikh told me to be careful. Did you hear what I just said? And the blacks are like, yes, we got something new, which we've been learning almost 2 decades before they decided to give the blacks something new. And the blacks are walking around like, yeah, we getting something new. I just bust out laughing. And they tell them, don't listen to the blacks. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. You telling us, and now your children, who were children when you told us that, are now telling our children, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. It couldn't be a better movie written. You cannot write a better movie. And the young person was like excited, but he recognized game because our young people are getting a little rebel. He was like, man, they get on my case about learning from somewhere else, but they're doing the same thing they're telling us not to do. And feeding it and recycling it to us in the way they want it, but telling us don't do nothing. It needs to be a straight rebellion against these matters. It needs to be a rebellion because it's status quo and we need to change it. How many have heard Arab town or been in a city and it's all an Arab area? The stores, the businesses, the schools, the doctors, the pharmacies. How many have seen such a thing? All Arabs. How many have you seen that? In America. Huh? That's a question. We got to get ready to close out, but that's a question. How many know of an Arab town or area of the town that's all Arabs? Okay. How many of you know in the city that the area of the town is filled with Bengalis or Pakistanis? They have their own area. Even if it ain't called anything, that area is dominated by them, the businesses, the stores. They have everything they need. Right? So we see this stuff. Is there ever question why they got their own stuff? Have anyone heard them question why are we doing for ourselves? Has anyone heard them say why we don't have this? It's just us and our businesses. Why we don't, have African Americans mixed in and some African American businesses, some African American doctors? Do you ever hear that? Do you ever hear it? Do you have an outreach program to integrate their communities? Do you have that? That's a question. Is there an outreach program to integrate their communities? I want more to answer because there's a lot. It's almost 80-something people in here. I want an honest answer, real conversation. Do you ever hear of a campaign to integrate? The answer is no. That's true. And is it ever said to them that this is wrong? We all should be included. We must all benefit from this wealth and this part. It's well known. So why is it when we talk about doing the same thing, it's the most horrendous, unlawful act that has ever happened in history? Why? When we talk about doing the same thing that you do, that others do, we don't criticize them. We don't say anything. It is expected. They lobby. They got political lobbies. They do everything they need to do for their people. It ain't about Islam. For their people, they do everything they need to do. And nothing is ever said. In fact, it's praised. But when we do it, it's wrong. Why is that? It's a question. It's obvious. We know it because all of those towns and all of those areas become politicized. They have lobbies. They work for their own interests. They do politics. They do voter drives. They do everything they need to do to sustain their group, their people, their area. Why, when we do it, there is such an outcry? Why? In fact, we support them in their efforts. Don't we go to their stores? Don't we take even our poor, take their welfare cards and are overcharged for inferior, cheap products at higher prices? And we still support them. Don't we? Let's be honest. Don't we? So not only is it okay, we support them doing it. But why when we go to do something to empower ourselves, there is no support, there is censoring, there is considered that we're wrong, we're doing the wrong thing? Why? 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 Make it known to me. I'm just trying to understand how that makes sense to anybody who's used their brain. And this will keep us like this for generations if we don't change. Seriously, we'll stay like this for generations to come, as we have been in the past 2 or 3 generations. And in Islam, we're passing it down to our children. So I'm telling you, for me, the biggest concern for us in reality is racism and classism. Yeah, we need the correct belief. But even with the correct belief, if we don't change the racist issues, the correct belief is not going to make our lives in the world any better. Maybe in the hereafter, maybe after we get punished for all the sins that we're in because we're in economic depression, maybe after we get out of the hellfire for all those sins we commit because we're trying to survive in the world, and we're forced to do a bunch of haram just to survive because we're not an empowered people, maybe because of the correct belief, we'll eventually get out the hellfire. But why don't we use that correct belief to be a stepping stone for a better life like everyone else does? Explain. Why not? Everyone else does it. Why we got to stop at just having the correct belief and some obligatory knowledge, and that's where you stop? From then on, you a servant and a slave, and so shall be your future generations. No one else stops there. They build institutions, they build businesses, they build schools, they build universities, all off your hard labor, and you stay in the inner cities and struggle. And you're losing your children while their children are becoming your children and your teachers. And you're losing your children to the streets, to this world, while you build nothing. So I'm calling myself for a complete revamping of our relationship with others until we're an empowered people. A complete revamping of our relationship with others until we are an empowered people. It needs to change. And it is our duty to change it. And we have the ability. We have the ability. We have the ability. We have to be serious. We have to be determined. And we have to say no. No more. No more. And watch, whenever we stick together, we stop allowing ourselves to be subjugated, oppressed, disenfranchised by anybody else. Watch the results we get. Watch the change of the situation. This is my life mission, seriously. I don't have anything else more important to me. Not me, it's my life. I don't see anything more important than what I'm talking about. And learning the religious knowledge is a given to do what we're talking about. It's a given. Having the correct belief, all that's a given. That's a given. It's like waking up in the morning and washing up and brushing your teeth. It's a given. It's something you need to do. It's like known. We don't have to, no one has to wake up and say, oh, I got to wash up. I got to brush my teeth. I got to clean myself up before I start my day. I think all of us, as a given, that's what we do. When we get up in the morning, we clean ourselves up after sleeping. That's a given. That's our belief. It's a given. It's something we should just do. No one has to sit around and think about, I got to clean myself up in the morning. That should be our belief. Now, the other stuff we got to work on. So with that, I'll close out. That's my scattered thought. May Allah make it of some benefit to you all. Barakallahu bikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.